Some monsters don't wear faces. They don't leave footprints. They just exist in the spaces where the light dies. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, its massive frame contorted just to fit beneath the doorframe. No eyes, no teeth, just a towering, pitch-black void drinking in the moonlight. And as I froze in that hallway, paralyzed by a terror so violent it felt like my heart was stopping, I heard it inhale. A long, wet, suffocating breath. If you think the walls of a locked house will protect you when night falls in the deep woods, you're lying to yourself. Because that night in July of 2019, it didn't break in. It was already inside, waiting for us to turn off the lights. There is a specific kind of silence that only exists deep in the wilderness. It isn't peaceful. It's heavy. It presses against your eardrums until every snap of a twig sounds like a warning. Back in the summer of 2019, I was 24, working as a senior counselor at a summer camp tucked deep into a dense, sprawling forest. This wasn't a camp with open wooden barracks. It was a collection of isolated mini dormitories, small house-like structures buried beneath a suffocating canopy of endless pine trees. Each dorm had a central common room, a small kitchenette, and 3 cramped bedrooms. I was responsible for 12 teenage boys in House 4. My job was simple: keep them safe, keep them out of trouble. But the forest has a way of twisting normal things into nightmares. And by the 3rd week of July, the atmosphere inside House 4 felt rotten. The air felt colder than it should have been. The shadows stretched a little too far across the hardwood floors. And then, the warnings started. It began on a suffocatingly humid Tuesday morning. A 15-year-old camper named Leo approached me after breakfast. His skin was drained of color, dark purple bags hanging beneath his bloodshot eyes. He told me that for 2 nights in a row, the moment the house went pitch black, the floorboards outside his room would begin to creak. Not the normal settling of an old house. These were slow, heavy, deliberate footsteps. Walking up to his bedroom door and just stopping. "I could hear it breathing through the wood, man," Leo whispered, his voice trembling. "It just stands there, all night." I did what any logical adult would do. I rationalized it. I convinced myself it was just another camper pulling a cruel midnight prank. That night, right before lights out at 11 p.m., I stood in the living room and issued a stern warning. Anyone caught out of bed tonight goes straight home. I locked the heavy front door, slid the deadbolt into place, and shut off the main lights. The house swallowed the darkness whole. I went to my room, closed my eyes, and waited for sleep to claim me. At 1:17 a.m., the house shattered. A blood-curdling scream pierced through the silence, a sound of pure, unadulterated primal terror. I slammed my door open, sprinting blind through the pitch-black common room, and shoved my way into room 3. I slammed the light switch on. The 4 teenagers were backed into the farthest corner of the room, clawing at the drywall, utterly hysterical. One kid was on his knees, hyperventilating in sheer panic. Leo pointed a shaking hand toward the open closet door. He whimpered that he had woken up to a wet, raspy breathing sound right beside his ear. When he opened his eyes, he saw it. A massive, unnatural shadow standing motionless inside the open closet, blocking their only path of escape. For 20 agonizing minutes, the 4 boys lay paralyzed in the dark, watching this towering silhouette watch them back. Finally, one of the kids tried to muster the courage to step out of bed and confront what he thought was a prankster. The moment his feet touched the cold floorboards, the shadow moved. It didn't walk, it lunged. A sudden violent blur of darkness that exploded across the room, slammed the bedroom door shut with a force that rattled the glass in the windows, and vanished into the hallway. "That wasn't a kid," the boy wept, looking up at me. Its head was almost touching the ceiling. Cold dread pooled in the pit of my stomach. I locked them inside and stepped out into the silent hallway. I searched every inch of that house. The deadbolt on the front door was still locked. The windows in the living area were sealed shut. No mud, no disturbance, nothing. I sat on the living room couch in total darkness, a heavy flashlight gripped tightly in my knuckles. 3 a.m. arrived, then 3:30. My eyelids grew heavy. The silence was hypnotic. Creak. My eyes snapped open. Every hair on my arms stood on end. Creak, creak. Slow, heavy. Footsteps creeping down the narrow hallway toward room 3. I didn't turn on the flashlight. I stood up, blood roaring in my ears, and silently slunk around the corner of the hallway, ready to tackle whoever was there, and my heart instantly stopped beating. Standing at the end of the narrow corridor, illuminated only by the sickly pale glow of the moon, was a nightmare made flesh. It was impossibly tall, at least 6'8", its shoulders impossibly broad, draped in dark, filthy rags. Its head was bent sideways just to clear the doorframe of room 3. It had no visible facial features, just a smooth black void where a human face should be. I opened my mouth to yell, but my throat closed up. Total, suffocating paralysis. I couldn't move a single muscle. My body simply refused to obey. Slowly, smoothly, the head turned toward me. It didn't speak. It just looked at me. And in that frozen eternity, I heard it again. A long, wet, raspy inhale, savoring the stench of my terror. I braced for it to charge. I braced for the end. But then, with an unnatural, jerky, fluid motion, the creature stepped backward, folded its massive, elongated frame through a tiny open window frame, and dissolved into the black abyss of the woods. Gone. I rushed to the window and slammed it shut, my hands shaking so violently I could barely work the latch. Police search dogs combed the woods until sunrise. They found no scent, no footprints, no trace of a human being. But when the deputies inspected the rest of the property, they made a discovery that sent a chill straight down my spine. Every single window across all 12 camper cabins had been unlocked from the outside. Someone had walked through that camp days prior, methodically unlatching the locks, preparing the grounds. I packed my bags and left 3 days later. I couldn't stay. I couldn't face those woods again. It's been years now, but every single night, before I close my eyes, I walk around my house and double-check every lock on every window. Because the most horrifying thought isn't that a monster was standing in our hallway that night. The most horrifying thought is, how many nights was it standing inside that closet, silently watching those children sleep before anyone noticed? Sleep tight.